Hello, welcome to Locked On Sharks, the premier hockey podcast of your favorite team in the Bay Area. And on today's episode, we are going to project William Eklund's rookie season, see what type of season I think he's going to have, compare that to other seventh overall picks, and then compare that to previous Calder winners and see where William Eklund potentially could stack up. So all that and more on today's episode of Locked On Sharks.
You're Locked On Sharks, your daily podcast on the San Jose Sharks. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
I'm your host, JD Young, contributor at Fear the Fin and San Jose Hockey Now. I want to thank you, of course, for making us your first listen. We're free and available wherever you get podcasts. And of course, you can subscribe on YouTube as well, as we are getting closer and closer to real hockey starting. We have training camp next weekend. We've got the rookie tournament this weekend. We got preseason games about 10 days away from now. So, guys, we've made it. We're going to be back to being your team every day starting next week. And you're probably actually going to get 4 episodes out of me this week. So as we kind of gear up towards hockey season. But I wanted to take today's show and kind of talk about something very near and dear to my heart. And it should be very near and dear to all Sharks fans' heart. And that is one, William Eklund, and kind of projecting what type of season we think William Eklund should have this year. And so what I did is I looked at some of the fantasy numbers, which again, I don't play fantasy hockey, but I still think it's a good barometer of projecting how guys are going to do in a particular season. You know, we can kind of use that as a nice base total and see if that makes sense. If you think maybe they're a little low, maybe if they're a little high, or if they're kind of right where they need to be. And then I also want to look at some of the other kind of historical 7th round picks and look at their first season. So I looked back at some of the last couple of draft picks, look back at their first season and see how they produced in their first full rookie year with the team. And then wanted to also look at, if we want William Eklund to win the Calder, what type of season he would actually have to be in consideration for the Calder Trophy. So let's get into with Eklund and what his projected numbers look like. So I think the first thing we have to do is, what type of role is William Eklund expected to have? And, you know, if you look at last year, he was a top 6 forward coming out of camp, played on that second line he's playing with Couture, he's playing with Eklund or with Hertl. They kind of were playing mostly with Hertl because Couture, if you remember, it was the Dahlin, Couture, Timo Meier line to start the season. And then Hertl and Eklund were on a line together with, I believe it was Barabanov. So I project him to be kind of on that second line this year. I think have him start with Couture, so it'd be like an Eklund Couture. And if you wanted to go Bonino or your winger du jour, Oscar Lindblom, Kevin Labanc, whomever. So I think his top 6, I think he coming out of camp, he should have that spot pretty solidified as a top 6. If he makes the Sharks, he's going to be in a top 6 role, right? And he's also going to get power play time. We saw last year how effective he was on the power play. He, got most of his points on the power play. We saw him setting up play guys, and like his skill and his vision and his ability to pass and find open guys and create space. They're going to utilize him on the power play, and I wouldn't be surprised if he's a top power play guy, especially because the Sharks don't really have a plethora of power play potential guys. So I wouldn't be surprised if Eklund is playing a lot of, kind of those top power play minutes just because wanting to get your best guys out on the ice. So looking at ESPN Fantasy, they have him projected in 68 games to score 13 goals, 24 assists for 37 points, get 10 early minutes and 7 power play points, which I feel is a little low, especially we're protecting his potential role. And then playing 1548 time on ice. That'd be up from last year where he was in the 14 minutes in his 9 games with the Sharks last year. But the goals feels about right. I kind of see him in the 15 range. I think if 15 to 20, you'd be really happy with Eklund because he's not known for his goals. 24 assists, it's a tad low to me. And I think the power play minutes, I could easily see Eklund, especially if he's playing top power play minutes in a full season, he should have more than 7 power play minutes, 7 power play points during that time. And, I think for him, that's probably going to be where he's going to have to kind of make his bread at first until he kind of gets used to playing the NHL. But being effective on the power play is going to be an easy way for him to help bump up his numbers. And then NHL.com, they have him projected for 45 points. They don't break it down, unfortunately, by points during how that's broken down by goals and assists. They just say 45 points, which I feel is probably a little bit closer to what is expected. So if you're putting him at 15 goals and then 30 assists, that feels pretty close to being right for William Eklund, especially what's probably going to be a pretty low scoring Sharks team. And so I feel like looking at those numbers, 45 points feels about right. I could see, if it's 10 to 15 of those points coming from the power play and then the rest on 5-on-5, 15 goals, 15 goals, 30 assists feels about right. So that's what other people are projecting William Eklund to have for his first season, first full season in the NHL. So what we're going to do next is we're going to look at some of the other 7th round picks, how they played in their first season, look at their point totals and their use and kind of their usage and see if William Eklund should be on track, do better or worse than some of these guys. But before we do that, we do need to take a quick break and talk to you guys about our friends over at BetOnline. You guys know by now, BetOnline, the number one source for all your pro and college football betting needs and sports info this season. Find all the latest football league developments, game matchups, news, podcasts, including, we just finished week 1. We're getting ready to go into week 2 now. We have a little bit of information on these NFL teams. So the lines are going to start to fluctuate a bunch. So, but still early in the season, if you have a team you like, now's the time to ride in before everybody kind of figures out the lines. So BetOnline is your continued source for your sports wagering information, including live betting, which is super fun, esports and scores. They're the fastest and easiest way to check in all your favorite sports and events, including MLB. You got playoffs right around the corner, MMA, boxing, and golf. So head to their website today or use your mobile device to learn more about the trends in action. BetOnline, where the game starts. All right, so we discussed what type of season that William Eklund have. And I think that 45, 50 points kind of feels right for Eklund, especially if he's maybe instead of 68 games, if he's in the 72, 75, pushing that 50 points, I think feels very kind of on track for Eklund. He could definitely go over that, but I just kind of looking at the projections and I think 50 points would feel like a really solid season for Eklund. So let's look at some of the other guys recently who were the 7th overall picks. And let's start with one, Alexander Holtz, who was the 7th overall pick in the 2020 draft. Also Swedish, played for Djurgården as well. Last year was his first season over here playing in North America. He stayed in Djurgården for after his draft season, where in 40 games he had 7 goals, 11 assists, and 18 points. So production had more goals than Eklund, but he definitely played more games. But the production is pretty similar for what Eklund was considered to have a bad season. But if you look at the production, pretty similar, at least when it comes to total points. And I don't think Eklund's ever going to be the goal scored in that Alexander Holtz is. But this year, so he played his first full season in North America, 52 games in the AHL with the Utica Comets, 26 goals, 25 assists, 51 points during that time. did get a taste in the NHL with 9 games and had 2 assists during that time for 2 points and 2 penalty minutes. But so this is going to be Holtz's first, considered his rookie year since he hasn't played enough games yet. So potential Calder right there. But, Holtz they've definitely kind of been very slow with his development and making sure that when he is ready to go to the NHL, he's ready to go. So we'll kind of see how he does, and especially as we're potentially tracking a Calder race with Alexander Holtz. Going to be comparing Eklund and Holtz, especially from their same kind of paths through U Gardens and now into the NHL. So, but last year, 51 points in the AHL is a pretty solid season. So, all right. And then going back to the 2019 NHL draft, the Buffalo Sabres picked one Dylan Cousins at the 7th pick. He came from WHL, then played. So his went from WHL straight to the NHL in the 2020-2021 season. Made the team right out of camp there. The 2020-2021 season is a little weird just because it's the shortened, weird, you just play in your division season. So in the Buffalo Sabres that year were pretty bad. But 41 games played. He had 4 goals, 9 assists, 13 points total, 16 penalty minutes. So, okay, not too bad, right? I guess that's pretty similar to Holtz's season in Uardin. I know the NHL is better than the SHL, but it's comparable. Last year, in his first full season, 79 games played, he had 13 goals, 25 assists, 38 points, 55 penalty minutes. But so kind of getting things going here. We'll see what the Sabres, what they do as they're starting to add more and more of their prospects are starting to hit the actual NHL team. If you go back to the 2018 season, so the 7th overall pick was actually Quinn Hughes. I don't want to compare defensemen to forwards. It's kind of comparing apples to oranges just because, you guys know forwards and defensemen, it's hard to kind of compare their counting stats. So I looked at the 6th overall pick, one up. One Phillips Zadani from the Red Wings. So he played the Q with Halifax. And then in the 2018-2019 season, kind of split his time. He got mostly in the AHL, 59 games, 16 goals, 19 assists, 35 points. Played 9 games in the NHL. We had a goal, 2 assists for 3 points. The 1920 season, he split his time between the NHL and the AHL. In the NHL, in 28 games, he had 8 goals, 7 assists for 15 points. And then with Grand Rapids, he had 21 games for 9 goals, 7 assists, and 16 points. And then last year in his kind of first, in the 2020 season, again, weird with the COVID. Some guys started in Europe and then worked their way over. So in the NHL, he had 49 games, 6 goals, 13 assists for 19 points. And then last year, kind of in a full season, 74 games played, 10 goals, 14 assists, 24 points. So hasn't really kind of racked up the numbers that you would hope for a 7th overall pick. So I know I believe they did just re-sign him, so he did get a new deal. He's only 22, or I guess he'll be 23 at the beginning of this season. So, but really hasn't kind of produced, I think, at what you'd expect for a 7th overall pick. So, and the last guy we're going to look at, which is very interesting, we'll get to that here in a minute, but Elias Anderson, who was drafted by the Rangers in the 2017 first round 7th overall pick. Same thing, worked his way from Sweden, had pretty solid numbers in Sweden. SHL, he had his last full season there. He had, in 42 games, he had 9 goals, 10 assists, 19 points. Not too bad. And then 17-18, he started in the SHL before coming over. In 22 games, he had 7 goals, 7 assists, and 14. Then with the Rangers that year, he played 9 games with the Rangers, 1 goal, 1 assist, 2 points. And then with the Hartford Wolfpack in the AHL, he had 25 games, 5 goals, 9 assists, 14 points. Next year, though, is very interesting. The 18-19 season, again, split his time between Hartford and the Rangers. 42 games with the Rangers, 2 goals, 4 assists, 6 points. And then with the Hartford Wolfpack, 36 games, he has 6 goals, 14 assists, 20 points. And then I went back to Sweden a little bit, signed with the King. He's now with the Kings in the King system. And again, just really hasn't kind of done what you would hope. But interesting thing with him was that 18-19 season. Guess who was the head coach of the Rangers? That would be one David Quinn. So I think it'll be interesting to see what type of, kind of same draft pedigree, how he kind of treated Anderson, and if Eklund gets the same kind of treatment. But I think Eklund's going to be a much better player than Anderson, as we can kind of see. Anderson's had trouble kind of sticking in the NHL, and we'll see how Eklund does this season. So just want to kind of compare other 7th overall picks with how they've performed in their first full season here. So, nothing like crazy to write home about, but I think Eklund, if he's in that 45, 50 point range, will probably be kind of having the best season among all these guys, especially compared to their first season. So, none of these other guys really cracked, I get, a ton of points in their first season. So going to be kind of an uphill battle compared to his other 7th round, mates there. But before we finish up and we look at previous Calder winners and what type of season Equine would have to be considered in the Calder conversation, let's take a quick break. Let you guys know about the Locked On NHL shows. So thank you guys for making Locked On Sharks your first listen every day. Again, we'll be back to 5 days a week starting next week. And you'll probably actually get a new episode for the rest of the week from me coming out of here. But when you guys are done, make sure you guys go check out Locked On NHL. They got you covered, getting ready for the season. We're doing power rankings. We're going to be getting ready, looking at some of the impact guys and, just kind of all the big storylines in the NHL as we prepare for a new season here at Locked On NHL. So you guys can listen wherever you get podcasts, and of course subscribe on YouTube as well. All right, so we want William Eklund to become the first Shark to win the Calder Trophy. What type of season would he have to really kind of be in consideration for that? So again, looked back at the last couple seasons for guys who won the Calder, and we have the last 4 seasons. We have 2 forwards and we have 2 defensemen. So Moritz Seider won it last year. Kirill Kaprizov, which was a very interesting one since he came over from the KHL and had played pro hockey for a while. You have Cale Makar, who's very good at hockey, and then Elias Peterson, which really funny. It's been 3 Western Conference teams except for Moritz Seider the past year. But so I looked at some of these guys and what their numbers look like, and then we can kind of get a projection of what type of season Eklund would have, because it's mainly based on points, right? I mean, we kind of know if you got to put up points to be in consideration for this thing. So Moritz Seider last year, 82 games played as a defenseman, 7 goals, 43 assists, 50 points, a whopping 23 minutes of time on ice, which is absolutely ridiculous for a rookie defenseman to be playing that type of minutes. For comparison, if you put him on the Sharks last year with those 23 minutes, his average time on ice would have been basically it would have been between Carlson and Ferraro. Like he played more minutes than Ferraro did last year, and just behind Erik Karlsson, and then Brent Burns, of course, with his 26 minutes. That's insane for a young guy like that, but dude's built like a brick house. Yeah, so All right, so Kirill Kaprizov for the Minnesota Wild, 55 games. That was the weird, kind of bubble year where they played. It was Colorado, Minnesota, the Blues, Sharks. It was that weird kind of year, right? So he played 55 to 56 games, 27 goals, 24 assists, 51 points, had 18 time on ice. Again, his thing is, it was weird because he qualified, but he had been playing in the KHL for several years. So there was, that whole brouhaha about it, but he's really good. And, you saw him this year repeat his success and have 100-point season this year. So yeah, so again, I don't think Eklund's going to be in the goals department there. If Eklund's getting 25 goals, that's would be pretty shocking. So I think Eklund's going to have to kind of make up in the assist department when it comes to that type of point total. So Cale Makar, defenseman, Colorado. If you don't know who Cale Makar is right now, he's really good. He's probably going to be racking up several Norais here over the next couple of years. 57 games. This was the COVID shortened season where, they shut things down and then they brought back, most of the teams for the playoffs. But 57 games, 12 goals, 38 assists, 50 points, 21 minutes time on ice. So pretty close to being a point per game player in that time. Yeah. And he's very good. And then Elias Pedersen from our friends up in Vancouver, 71 games, 28 goals, 38 assists, 66 points, 18-14 time on ice. Again, with these forwards getting that first line kind of 18-minute time on ice, racking up those minutes. So taking the average of all four of these, I know 2 defensemen and 2 forwards, but you'd have to play, I think if Eklund's in the kind of 70 games played, he's probably going to have to be about 20 to 25 goals and looking at 40 plus assists. So that'll put him in the 60 to 65 point range. So if he's in that 60 to 65 point range, he's probably going to be in the Calder conversation. It's going to be a pretty stacked year, I think, with the Calder. You're going to have, just in the Pacific alone, you're going to have Mason McTavish, you've got Matty Beniers, and then you've also got Shane Wright. There's going to be, Holtz, Alexander Holtz, who we talked about earlier, going to be playing his rookie season with the Devils. Like, there's going to be plenty. And then the Red Wings, Simon Edmondson. You got Owen Power in Buffalo. There's going to be a lot of these 2020 draft class guys who are going to be making their kind of impact this season. Some of these 2021 guys as well. So going to be a really fun Calder race. So we'll keep track of it and see where Eklund, especially if he gets out to a hot start, maybe starts kind of building that buzz. Maybe the Sharks are a little bit better than we expected, and he's kind of leading the way for that. I think it's a lot of points and kind of, these awards is a lot sometimes can be very narrative based as well. So if the Sharks are playing better than expected, maybe they're kind of in a fringe playoff spot by the end of the year, and Eklund's in that 60 to 70 point range, I think he's going to have a pretty good shot at winning the Calder Trophy. So realistic projection, probably about 40, 45 points for William Eklund. If he's in the 60 point range, I think we're having a potential Calder conversation at the end of the year. But yeah, that was projecting William Eklund's rookie season. So now we just got to, sim to end of the year, win that lottery, and get Connor Bedard to go play with William Eklund for the next 15 years, and we'll be good to go. Right, guys? But so that's going to do it for me today. Make sure you guys are following along on social media, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. We got the rookie tournament this weekend, so we're going to, definitely be watching that, kind of interacting with that. Saturday night, maybe potentially, might do a little YouTube, kind of react to that. So rest of the week, we're going to be finishing up our Get to Know the Enemy series, which I can clearly tell you guys do not like because nobody watches them or downloads them, but we're going to be finishing up with the Golden Knights. So that'll be coming out. And then Friday, we'll have an episode on what to watch for what kind of I'm watching for the rookie tournament, expectations going into it. And then we'll be back next week with 5 episodes a week, kind of recap the rookie tournament and get you guys ready for training camp, which I can't believe is it's almost here, guys. So that'll do it for me today. You can, of course, listen to the show wherever you get podcasts, Apple, Spotify, Odyssey, all those places. Yeah, wherever you're listening to it now. YouTube as well. Go ahead and subscribe. You can see I have I'm going to start putting a jersey up here. So Tomasz Hurdle made their first appearance. And then you can follow me on Twitter at myfryhole. Again, be back with a look at the Golden Knights and the interesting offseason they had and kind of what this team is going to be going into this season. So easily the biggest basement ceiling team in the whole Pacific Division. So so that'll be it. Until then, bye, friends.